Take it away.
All right, my name is Nick Acs. A little history. I owned and operated a computer animation visual effects studio for about 8 years. It was a service company, and service sucks. So we had to get into something a little bit different. It's going to make us a little bit more money. So the idea was to get into IP, but I don't want to use the word IP today because it seems like IP is something for technology. It's also for something for creativity, or in terms of like characters, or Star Wars would be an IP or something. So I'm going to use the CP, or creative property, in that sense. But basically, I switched from a service company to a creative property, or a CP company, only because I was frustrated in doing all this service work for these other companies and watching them walk away and making all the money. So basically, the model here is, I think I'm going to start with a few questions. I mean, anyone here know what a brown coat is? No? Anyone love Firefly? Yeah. Okay. Anyone know who Joss Whedon is? Woo! Okay. The point of bringing this up is because, okay, another question would be, who knows what a green screen is? That's probably, more people would probably know what that is, right? Who knows what storyboards are? Why do we know these things? The question is why, and the answer is because there's an appetite for behind-the-scenes material. There's an appetite for seeing pulling the curtain aside and seeing the wizard do his magic kind of thing. And since the 80s, when Spielberg came out and started doing all these visual effects and everything else, the magic was there. But the magic's kind of lost. It's went somewhere. And in film, that's what we're trying to capture with second culture again, is where's the magic, trying to identify where that magic is and trying to monetize that. And in this case here, what we have is, I don't have any proprietary technology. Actually, to tell you the truth, and I'm probably going to get kicked out in about 30 seconds after I say this, we don't necessarily believe in proprietary technology. We don't necessarily believe in proprietary anything, which is ironic, and yeah, I can get in a lot of trouble for that. But basically, our whole thing is about trying to, in a sense, have a hybrid model of what we've heard before, crowdsourcing, and then also sort of a traditional model, and kind of trying to blend the two seamlessly together, getting the audience involved, getting the creators involved. And the internet is a technology that's been around for quite a while. I think you guys are familiar with it. And basically, that internet allows the creator that direct connection to the audience, or to the fan, or to what have you. So leverage that, and that's what second culture is all about. And you'll see a little bit more why we called the company Second Culture as I kind of get into this. A little bit about the film industry. We talk about cost. I mean, the films have cost more and more, and it doesn't seem like there's any end to the escalating costs. You're looking at a 3-year period, development period, to actually get a film from script to screen and finally start to make money. It's an enormous amount of cost, enormous amount of effort, manpower, creativity, and all that other stuff. And it's a risk. It's a huge risk because it's art. And in the sense of art, it's subjective. It's not an objective tool that you can put together and ask somebody, does this work for you? Everybody's going to have a slightly different response to a subjective medium. So what do? We leverage the internet to get the audience to help us develop that IP. Yes, financially, a little bit of creativity, but at the same time, the creator also shows his material, and when he gets that feedback, if he decides to take a stand and say, no, I don't think that the audience is necessarily right in this case, he has to defend himself. So in the sense here, what we have is trying to move an audience into a space where they're helping out the production of a film. And what we did was we decided to take that a little step further, in the sense that if there's a 3-year period, couldn't we make $1 from day one? Is that possible? Is it possible, instead of these studios throwing millions of dollars at a known CP, be it X-Men, be it Harry Potter, be it what have you, because that's the only place where they're willing to take the risk for these millions of dollars. Instead of going that route, why not create an IP or a CP? Why not have the audience tell us why not have the audience help us build the next Star Wars, whatever your favorite thing is, insert that there. Why not have them help? Financially as well, creatively, and if you'd like, you can build in certain incentives. What we're looking at here is basically a portal site. What we have, you can see the behind-the-scenes action, up to the minute, eventually. What you're looking at, I should also preface, is very, very early. We're only about 6 months into development on this. So what we've been doing a lot is a lot of testing, a lot of due diligence. We've been getting a lot of feedback from the audience, what they want, what they're looking for, what excites them. Okay? So what we decided was to see if we couldn't create that model, like I was saying, $1 from day one. Is that possible? Is it possible for me to basically say, and this is touchy, screw the investor, screw the distributor, screw the system, screw that nepotism that exists within every industry, obviously, but the film industry especially. Is there a way? So Second Culture tried to take all these different elements, be it advertising through, we see the Google ads down here. It could be other advertising. We use a video service called Rever. Anyone familiar with Rever? Simple concept. At the end of your video, there's an ad. Someone clicks on it and makes you money. Okay. So when we launched this site, we launched the typical sort of elements, the typical being these advertisements and other such. From there, I think on the first day, we didn't actually make $1 from day one. I think it was something like 32 cents. And I think probably my mom clicked on that a couple times, to tell you the truth, and so that's how we made that money. But since then, we've made actually over $1,800. And that's within, the site went live about 6 months ago, and it only started being monetized about 5 months ago. And there's been no advertising at all. On our part, no marketing, no nothing. So basically, the question is like, how were we able to do that? And what we did was we did this very simple concept called frame by frame. And essentially what you do is you buy a frame of the film before it's made, becomes sort of a collector's piece, and I'll play this little video. It kind of explains it a little better than I might be able to, but basically here's the concept of frame by frame. Oh, it might not be sound.
We're making a movie. We're doing it by selling frames. Buy a frame. You're part of the movie. $50 gets you a celluloid print to your frame mounted. Badass. You're able to watermark it.
So this is the product,
just like this.
And they're talking about watermarking your name into the film. And basically, when you buy a frame, you get access to an element of the site, a behind-the-scenes portion. There is a public portion of the behind-the-scenes. But basically, we're not talking about crowdsourcing in the sense of actually asking someone to invest money.
2 more minutes.
Okay. We're not talking about advertising in the sense of asking someone to invest money, because there's a psychological leap someone has to make. If you're buying a product, it's a different leap. Everybody buys products every day. It's something we're very comfortable with, something we know very well, something that the impulse buy can happen. Whereas if you're going to have to invest in a film, if you're going to have to think about whether or not I'm going to invest my money into this film, you have to think about all these other elements that play into that. You have to think about return on investment, all these things that you think you should know, and what that does is it ends up scaring you away. So instead of that model, which we decided to avoid, we went with the model of a product. And the idea of selling these frames is right when the film goes, or right when the film starts pre-production, we show all the behind the scenes, from script to screen. We bear all. We bear everything. Whether it's our failures creatively or whether it's our successes, the audience gets to get involved. And basically by taking the frames, there are other elements, or what we call streams of revenue that we've built. We've built other streams of revenue where we take the storyboards off the wall, we put them into a collection, and we actually sell that product as well. So you have a phone book, let's say, size of storyboards. You have an art of book. All of these things you can go to any chapters and buy at this moment. And now what you're doing is you're actually getting a nice collection of all of this element. And what you're doing is you're creating that build-up. You're creating that momentum with the audience. So that's essentially frame by frame. There's a whole lot of other elements to it, but the concept is this hybrid of a crowdsourcing with sort of a traditional model and trying to put that online and getting the audience more involved with creating the CD.
Good. We now open up for questions. 3 to 4 minutes questions. Anyone? Questions?
Pretty simple question, I guess. Is it just animation? Could it be,
It could be
live action?
At the moment, this film actually looks like it's animation, and that's a marketing thing that we're going to be addressing. We're actually doing it live action, and we're building the cockpit of, we have giant panda robots. And we picked this particular concept because the anime presence online is huge. So it can be an animated product, it can be, you know, a live action product or what have you.
Maybe if I just a little follow-up to that, I guess I was working from an assumption that people could bring their own and introduce their own CP, their own movie, their own, you know, whatever it is that they're trying to create. They could bring that into the, or is that, am I wrong in that assumption?
That, in this model, we don't necessarily support that.
Okay.
There are other companies out there trying to do that.
All right. Yeah.
And what we found when we've been doing our research is that it ends up becoming fragmented, and in terms of the audience's dollar becomes fragmented because now they don't know which properties to necessarily invest in. From a marketing standpoint, instead of fragmenting your marketing dollar into 10 different properties that you're going to try to support, or trying to push 10 different films or 10 different what have you, what we've done is we've said, no, we've consolidated into one, possibly two, because we have another one in development at the moment. And what we're doing is we're trying to create an audience or a followership or a fandom, so to speak, rather than fragmenting that marketing dollar. Any other questions?
Do you see yourself targeting more so like the independent filmmaker, the small guy, or are you going to be looking at larger production companies?
Well, the idea here is that we now have the FrameBuyFrame.com. If you sell 170,000 frames, and that's how many is in roughly about a 2-hour movie, you're looking at about 2.6 million US. We also get the .jp for Japan, the .kr for Korea. The reason why we picked Panda Girls with Panda Mex, the anime, was because we were planning on entering these regions. So now you've tripled, or if you can find other regions that are attractive in that area, that looks like you might be able to sell, but after doing your research, then we should open up another site in that region and sell another 170,000 frames within that region, as well as translating all of the art of material, the comic book, and all that other stuff. I mean, we're not really making film. What we're actually doing is creating an a creative property. Okay? And what we're doing is we're getting that feedback from that audience to help us tell us, you know, what characters they like. Even to the point where when we have auditions for actresses, all their videos will be posted online. Now, vicariously, people can go to the site and see someone reading from a Panda Girl script aside from a Panda Girl script, and they can choose and tell us which girl should play this role. So it's basically getting them involved in many different ways. Unfortunately, 10 minutes doesn't necessarily allow me to cover it all, but there are several revenue streams that we've got planned, not just this frame-by-frame idea. This is just one idea that we've been playing with. We've got about 10 lined up revenue streams. So we've only got two, I think, three. We've only got three on the site.
Great.
Any other questions?
Why did you pick the movie instead of something like a television program or something?
It's sexy. Honestly, film is a large enough product that someone can get excited about it. If I started off with doing a comic book, it would just be like another webcomic, right? I mean, everybody, I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with Penny Arcade. I mean, I've always said if Joss Whedon did this, and I'm not sure how many people here are actually familiar with how Serenity, the film, got made, but if Joss Whedon was going to do something like this, it would probably sell in like 3 days, every frame, right? So we have a pretty large, and this is the other reason why we didn't go with that other film idea of trying to entertain several films or several IPs, because they would compete with each other. The idea here is that we're trying to build a brand with the creators of the film. Just like Joss Whedon, you can go to his blog, and he's got a direct connection with his fans. It's sort of the same idea here. And to focus on one rather than many, and try and build that fan base, and then continue that